Hello, everybody. Hello. How's it going out there, internet folks? Can somebody just chime in the chat and make sure you can hear me okay? All's well. I don't want to rant at nothing, you know. I'm gonna presume we're good. So my name's Harry. I am thanks, Jake. All is well. Glad to hear it. My name's Harry. I'm the CTO at Gadget, and this is Gadget. We are a web app development tool, and today I'm going to stream using Gadget to build a ChatGPT app. And I'm going to tell you what the hell all those things are with my screen. Ta-da! So yeah, I just want to do like a brief overview of what the heck all these different bits are. And then if you have any questions, like feel free to jump in, ask in the chat. I'm going to try to be as kind of helpful to y'all as I can be to get this thing built. Also, just going to turn the background music down. There we go. Okay. So what the heck is a ChatGPT app? It's a new thing that they launched or OpenAI launched maybe, I don't know, 4 weeks ago, something like that really extends everybody else's ability to add stuff into the ChatGPT UI. So if you have like end users, like consumers who are, chatting with ChatGPT, doing their stuff, usually that's like text, and images going back and forth to the LLMs that OpenAI has built. But the advantage or the big new thing with ChatGPT apps is we can contribute functionality, like capabilities that the LLM can invoke to ChatGPT, as well as UI widgets, which is like OpenAI's term for kind of squares of, user interface that actually like live in the ChatGPT UX. So the like classic sort of like use case that they've that everyone makes fun of them for talking about so much is travel planning, right? Where like in the middle of, where is it here? In the middle of a chat, you can kind of pop open these like rich UI widgets like maps, or for booking.com flight plans, or whatever the kind of purpose of your app is. Jake asked on the chat, will it be posted later? Absolutely. We'll make the recordings available for everybody. So we're going to build one of these. We're going to build a thing that inserts both kind of new capabilities into ChatGPT as well as these like nice widgets. And we're going to use Gadget to do it. I'm going to try to not just mercilessly sell Gadget the whole time, because I think this whole platform is like really interesting. But I am going to talk about Gadget in the hopes that y'all, like it and find it in an interesting and exciting way to build this stuff. So this is my like Gadget account where I've sort of logged in. I'm going to make a new app for this. We're going to call it, it's going to be a ChatGPT app. We're going to use not the beta version of Gadget. We're going to call it Basketball Manager. And I know this sounds strange for a role-playing game, but just give me a moment. Give me a moment. So I clicked Create App there, and now I'm dropped into the Gadget web interface. So this is what I've spent many years of my life building now. And we've recently sort of added all this ChatGPT stuff to it. And what I'm going to do is just go ahead and get the kind of very basic ChatGPT app wired up to my Gadget app here, and then kind of explain what the different pieces I get from this template. So the Gadget AI assistant over here helpfully suggests creating a new ChatGPT connector and connecting to our ChatGPT app. So I'm going to copy this URL. I'm going to go over into, this is just my personal ChatGPT. I'm in developer mode here, which is necessary for setting this stuff up. Going to go back out to apps and connectors, click create, call this basketball manager. We're going to have a fun exercise at the end where we need to actually give this thing a good name. And then I need to paste in my MCP server URL here. Gadget supports OAuth, but we'll talk about that in a second. And then I will say, I know this is my stuff. Click create. And then we should get redirected here off to kind of complete the auth dance and actually set up this connection between ChatGPT and OpenAI. So I click connect. What happened is I got redirected to my Gadget app. My Gadget app is a working, running web app, like on the internet, kind of already hosting stuff. And this is like my app's code. You can see we're in the development environment for my app here, which is, the kind of base template Gadget sort of pooped out into my app for me. I'm going to say I'm just going to use Google. I'll connect with my Gmail here. And you see, I don't know if you were eagle-eyed enough to catch it, but that was the whole sort of OAuth dance happening in the URL bar that has completed that. And now my basketball manager app is connected to ChatGPT. So I'm going to explain what the hell just happened here. But what I want to show is once we have an established connection, my Gadget app is now able to add these like tools and widgets to the ChatGPT context. So if I'm connected, what I can say is I want to kind of turn on the basketball manager tool and say, evoke the hello Gadget tool. And what this is going to do is ask the ChatGPT LLM to invoke one of these Gadget tools. And here we are. This is that widget thing I was talking about. So under the hood, you can see ChatGPT invoked a tool. The tool kind of responded with this widget. And this widget here is powered by code over in my Gadget app. So if I say, here's the text here, edit how this widget looks like, hello, the internet, exclamation mark, exclamation mark. We go back to Gadget or the ChatGPT. There's my kind of hot module reloading showing me, I'm in control of this user content, which is, the whole point. So let's talk about all the different bits that had to come together for that to work in the first place. Basically, what is this line here? What's the protocol that ChatGPT talks to our app, and what do we have to do? So a ChatGPT app is actually two things. It is a standards compliant, like spec following MCP server, and it is a set of widgets, which is code for HTML, CSS, JS, like little bits of user interface that you can kind of inject into the ChatGPT experience. And so my basketball manager app that I just created here got a template. This is just something Gadget kind of gets everybody started with, that has a working MCP server kind of wired up and ready to go with hopefully, not too much code. There's that hello Gadget tool being registered. As well as the MCP server, Gadget sets up just this basic hello Gadget widget that uses React to render, this basic UI. So we're kind of ready to go, right? Out of the gate, we got the MCP server set up and working. We got the OAuth dance completed. We got this like widget where we can begin to do our code and kind of make our app do something. Time to hoop. And we can get started building. I want to mention one kind of key bit that is important, but not the most exciting thing in the world, which is there's a full featured auth system that comes with each Gadget application as well. So when you saw me kind of clicking the Gmail button and doing that OAuth dance, that was Gadget's auth plugin here. kind of managing the Google dance and authenticating me as a user to the Gadget app. And then Gadget's template also supports this thing called the OAuth 2.1 client discovery spec, which is an incredibly complicated and really boring way of facilitating the authentication between ChatGPT and the Gadget app, where ChatGPT can kind of like register and say, I want to get users out of you, so on and so forth. So we've tried to take away the complexity of all that nonsense while still allowing people to customize it if they want to, and just, you know, get the authenticated context working. So now we can build. Yeah. Any questions about all that? Any thoughts? Sort of things that are unclear, things that are weird? Whoa. What else is interesting? Riley, am I missing anything that I should be showing everybody? Riley is my man behind the curtain, who you may know from Gadget also. Riley says, nope. Okay, we're in business. So, what I want to do is build a silly game to kind of demonstrate these features and or live out my dream of playing basketball. I'm too short and too, what's the word? I guess Canadian, where we're just, basketball's a nothing here, but I've been watching it a lot recently, so it's on my mind. And so that's why I want to build this app. What I want to build is a game where you role play as a basketball manager, as the person who runs and owns a basketball team. But because we have the power of LLMs with us, the basketball team is going to be a Space Jam style basketball team as opposed to a real world style basketball team. So we are going to draft whatever characters we can come up with. We're going to train them to work well together. We're going to compete against other teams, and we're going to have fun and write lots of code while we're doing it. So like, this is a twinkle in my eye, to be completely honest. Like, I don't know if this is going to work or if the game's going to even be fun. But what's exciting for me is like, if I were a normal game dev and I were, you know, working in Unity or something like that, I have to go out and make all these assets. I'd have to like generate all the possible players that players could play as. I'd have to like build this whole game mechanic system that has fun, where people are kind of able to go train Bugs Bunny on Mars or whatever. But with generative AI, specifically for like art assets and for storytelling, I can kind of get it to do all the work and create this experience that seems fun to me, which is like, you can draft any individual character, fictional or otherwise, that you want onto your team and kind of make a team out of nonsense. I think, you know, someday it'd be fun to actually play the game of basketball, shoot the hoops with them. But for now, we're just being good managers. So this thing called retro diffusion is one of the first kind of tools I want to use. What it is a pixel art generator, kind of like Stable Diffusion or the ChatGPT like image generator. But it's cheap, and B, I like the aesthetic of it. So we can, you know, be creating mythical basketball players of any sort or shape with our app. And then the main reason that I want to do a ChatGPT app for this, or why I think, you know, this chat interface is the right tool for this, is I think in many of the best like management games in the world, you kind of have to do this like rote grind where you need to like take your players and train them on their stamina, or make them do, you know, races at the local, or not races, games at the local tournaments to level up or whatever. And I think if we can get it working right, that rote grind will be way more fun when you're working with ChatGPT to tell stories, where you're like, I want to take Bugs Bunny and train on Mars, or like, I want to draft Iron Man onto my team and he keeps shooting Bugs Bunny in the head with the laser thing. The better we can prompt ChatGPT, I think the more engaging and silly and, you know, fun this game might be. So that's enough ranting. Let's get to coding. Let's see where it goes. And yeah, if you have any thoughts or feedback or advice or like requests, holler in the chat, because I'd love your help making this actually kind of interesting, you know. So I think the first thing that we need to do is allow users to kind of draft players. So I think like what that would look like is I would say, activate the Basketball Manager app. I'd say draft me a new player named Jabron Lames or something like that. It's not going to work this time because I haven't added any tools or any way for the AI to actually do that. But I think this is kind of the right place to start. It's like player creation and management. Right. And here we are with like the first fun issue with ChatGPT app development is the LLM is so eager to help. It doesn't know that this is like an unimplemented bit of functionality. So it just like spits out gobbledygook text at us. You know what I mean? I think this is going to be a common theme. But anyways, let's make a tool that makes a new player. So that, this would actually like do that. So over here in our Gadget app, we have this MCP file. This is where we kind of define all our tools. I'm going to get rid of this Hello Gadget tool, or we'll just turn it into a create new player tool. We'll say create new player is the name of the tool. And the description is adds a new player to the list of available players. The user can interact with. And I think it's not read-only. Then we'll change the widget to be a new one called create new player.html. And over here in our ChatGPT, our web ChatGPT folder, I'll rename this to create new player. And then I think what we want to do is define a schema that allows the LLM to kind of interpret the free-form text from the user's message into structured data that will like persist and kind of keep handy to reproduce later. So I actually kind of forget what the syntax for that is. Over here in the ChatGPT docs, where we define tools. Build your MCP server. There we are. Yeah. So this is like another example from the docs. They're using Zod for schema validation. I think we'll do the same. And they just set input schema to whatever. So over here, we will say, oops, that goes at the top. And our input schema for create new player. I guess we'll also put that at the top. Schema z.object name string. I think all of this should be required. And maybe we'll just do a simple description or like bio dot string. Referred to by. And for the bio, we'll describe it. 223 sentence long description of the player, their play style, attributes, and capabilities. Okay. So what this is saying is I need to accept objects of this shape from ChatGPT. It's going to formulate objects of this shape. And if it formulates an object that doesn't have this shape, let's say it only has the name, or it uses the key title instead of name, we'll reject it. And that's why we're kind of being a little neurotic about the schema. Schema, create player schema. Okay. And then For the implementation, I think what we're going to do is save the player to a new thing called a gadget model, but I might just test it before we do that. I'll do new player params. We'll do JSON.stringify params. And then this stuff is kind of left over from our kind of current user kind of figuring out like which user is calling. Maybe I'll leave that in here, but I don't need this name stuff anymore. Okay, so we have a Doinky tool for creating a new player. Let me go over to the ChatGPT once more. There's this really annoying thing you have to do when you're developing apps like this, where you have to tell ChatGPT you've made changes to the tools. So it still has that hello gadget, right? And I click refresh and now it says create new player. It kind of knows that I've updated this. So if I forget to do that, it doesn't know about the new stuff, which is horribly annoying. So let's try again. Basketball manager, draft a new player named Jabron Lames. And let's see if it calls the right tool. This is something we've also found just a lot developing ChatGPT apps internally. They really don't seem to have performance optimized it much. Like it takes forever sometimes for it to do its thing. Like you see that when this renders, it goes pretty quick, but like just the step from message to tool call takes forever. So, okay, great. It called the tool. It's called create new player. Great. It made a name. It names it makes a little bio, and then the tool included embedded UI has been displayed to the user. Awesome. So let's wire up a little bit of UI that shows Jabron Lames and maybe generates an image for him under the hood. Yeah, definitely. Let's do that. So I'm going to switch gears for a brief moment, or I'm going to switch tools for a brief moment. I think this is something that a lot of gadget devs miss when they're first starting out, that there's this nice web editor which really lets you get started easily, right? Like I have a app running on the internet, it has a real domain, it has real auth, it's all like out there, and I haven't had to like set up any local development or kind of mess around. I have an AI assistant that I could ask, to make stuff for me, but I kind of want to just use Cursor. Like Cursor's AI agent is, I think, the best in the business, and it's going to be way easier for me to kind of pump out the code I want to pump out kind of in my tool of choice, where I'm comfortable as a developer. I'm not trying to throw shade on Gadget, but it's not $2.4 billion worth of funding making the best editor that they could possibly make. So I'm going to run this command called GGT. And what GGT is the Gadget kind of like local development experience. And what this does is it kind of does a two-way file sync between my local experience and the kind of cloud managed server that Gadget provisions for me, and lets me just kind of do development however I want. So I ran GGT dev, which is the kind of like all running out at the same time, just run it for me command. And I put it in a folder called Basketball Manager, and I said, we know which app, so I'll change into this directory, pop open Cursor. I also have this neurosis where I need to set the color of every editor so that when I'm like alt tabbing between things, I can quickly visually recognize like which one's which. But yeah, Yelvo in the chat asked, what is Gadget? Really briefly, it is a full stack web development tool where we kind of host and run web apps for you, as well as a JavaScript framework for organizing those apps that kind of works really good together. You can kind of think of it like the same as Next.js and Vercel, except we go way deeper into the back end where we manage your database for you, we manage auth for you. We have a bunch of connections to platforms like Shopify and ChatGPT. Yeah, easy way to build apps really fast. So I'm going to kind of make some changes to my API MCP file there and just show you that they're now made here. Here's the same code I was working on. If I add new lines here, they pop up over here. It's at the same spot. Where did that go? Did I break this? Oh, I have to save. There we go. When I save here, it pops up in the web. It's kind of same code base, 2 different windows into it. So now let's get started making a widget. In my create new player, I want to kind of inject the player that's been created. So let's say we'll do const player name bio, and we'll put the player in the structured context. What this structured content. Structured content is kind of how a ChatGPT MCP server tool can pass data to the front end widget that gets rendered. So over here in create new player, can get rid of this hello gadget stuff. Don't need that from the template anymore. Oh no, we do need one of those. Actually, I think I'm just going to get rid of both of them. And move this. I don't care about router. I just want a nice little doodad here. So we'll say new player draft. And there's some utils here where I can easily get the structured data, I think. Is it this one? Use widget props. Yeah, hook for accessing the tool output props. Nice. Over here in create new player, we'll call that. Oh, I got the number 1 setting of all time. Format on save. People who don't live like this, I don't understand. I don't understand you. That's crazy to me. So what I'm doing here is in my widget, I want to get that structured content, and Gadget has this nice handy wrapper package that just makes a few of these things a bit easier, which is the React ChatGPT apps package. From that, I'll import use widget props, and let's just do a simple kind of dump of those props to make sure that they're coming through all right. Back over in ChatGPT here, I'll refresh. And there we go. New player draft, and there's my params. Oh, it's wrapped in message. It's not really what I was expecting. Sorry. Oh, it's just right. I was passing the message, and now we're just going to pass the player. If I refresh this, we should get a little JSON dump. Oh, right. Sorry. The data is recorded when the tool call happens, so it's what it was at the time I made the call. But I think if I run this in a new conversation, which again is another thing you'll see happening an absurd amount in ChatGPT app development, we should get the right kind of content there. So I think what I want to do now is flesh this out to create kind of some player stats, some silly player stats like, height and defensive ability and offensive ability and stamina and 3-point shot rate. So let's ask Cursor to do its magic. Here, let's go to the auto mode. Not waste my precious tokens. Extend this player schema with some attributes that capture how good a fictional character might be at basketball. Let's see what it suggests for us. I don't know about y'all, but I find it so easy to type that, so to type the whole thing. I am deeply LLM pilled at this point. I think it's kind of nice, right? That was a lot. So what did it pick? Shooting, defense, rebounding, passing, handling, vertical. Yeah, that checks out. Stamina. Cool. Okay. And then here's our player struct. So now I'm just going to say update the create new player widget to render this player a nice view. And then I think while cursor's cooking on that, the next thing we could do is set up some image generation to go out and get a nice image that describes this player. Right, in our kind of little UI here, we're gonna have, you know, a somewhat doinky looking text only output if we don't generate an image. So I want to use this here retro diffusion thing to make an avatar. So I have some code that we can rip off for that from another app that I built with Gadget that was another silly game. Where is it? Generate bot image. Yeah, this looks right. Word. Yes. Okay. Go back over to Gadget here, and I'm going to steal this, and I'll explain what this is. Generate player image. Fantasy avatar. Basketball player named name. What did the prompt say before? Huh. Okay. So, what I'm working on right now is a way for the UI in here to kind of render a widget and show the. Oh, it failed. What the heck? Oh, I need to refresh it. That's why. It failed, but when it works, we want to render the widget and we just show kind of the player and the stats and the bio as well as an image of them. And the image takes like a few seconds to generate, which is kind of an annoying thing. Like we can't just kind of like do it as we go. So I think what we want to do is kind of like show the widget and have like a little spinner while the image is being generated and then have it like show up when it's done. So what I'm doing is I'm copying code from a previous thing that I can just kind of modify a little bit to do that image generation for us. And the way that the image generation works is using this retro diffusion tool I've ranted about a couple times. And the previous kind of app I was talking about was a BattleBot arena. So the code I copy pasted is all about BattleBot. So what I want to do is just change the image generator prompts to describe basketball players instead of bots. So we'll say bio fantasy basketball player named for a silly basketball game centered in frame, tight, blah, 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 blah. We'll say player bio, and then we need to add this secret to make our action work. And I'm just going to change that to bot. This needs to be bio. Cool. Okay, I think that'll work once I add the secret. So I'm just going to flip back over to Gadget here, give myself an environment variable. I think we called it, what do we call it here? Retro diffusion API key. So this is Gadget settings section where I'm kind of able to manage secrets and kind of do the secure way of doing stuff instead of, say, hard coding something like that into my code. I want to actually, carefully encrypt it and not reveal it. So I'm just going to put this off screen so you all can't steal my retro diffusion API key. And I've copied it. I've encrypted it. Now we're back. I made one of these, but haha, you can't have it. And then we'll save. So now in my kind of auto-managed serverless runtime by Gadget in the cloud, I'll have this API key set. And so we've defined our image generator here. And what this is a Gadget concept called an action. So far, we've just been kind of using this MCP server stuff and doing it sort of the very simple and plain ChatGPT way. But Gadget has a kind of full-featured framework for actually like building and organizing your backend logic. And the first kind of thing of that I want to introduce you to is this idea of actions. What actions are like serverless HTTP endpoints in your app's backend, but they get a bunch of stuff for free by being, not just an HTTP route, they're an action. So the first thing that they get is an auto-generated API. So over on my kind of auto-generated API docs for my app, you can see just by defining this API actions generate player image file, I get a API endpoint I can call that actually invokes that code. So I have a little auto-generated API object, and I can call the generate player image function on it. And that makes like an HTTP call to my app's auto-generated API to actually like do the thing. The reason that happens, or the reason that auto-generation happens, is because this action, this is the same one we're looking at cursor, gets this, generated API endpoint trigger by default. And this trigger is kind of like built into the Gadget framework. It sort of manages the input parameter validation, the output parameter validation, the authentication, rate limiting, caching, all that stuff kind of for us. So if I didn't want this API, I can just delete this. And, at the bottom here, we say triggers API false. But in my case, we do want this. And so I'm just going to add that back in. And then in my case, I'm going to say signed in users are able to generate images. We can also test our API in the little API playground here. So if I have await API.generate player image, we can say name Gibran Lames, bio, cool guy from, where is LeBron from? James. California? How do I not know this? Ohio. I knew that. Duh. Akron. So by me kind of hitting enter there, what's happening is my browser's making a request over to Gadget. Gadget is running the generate player image action. That's making the API request off to retro diffusion. Retro diffusion takes forever because GPUs are expensive and models are complicated. And then eventually it'll reply to us with an image. If I go look in the logs from my app here, you can see that generating player avatar image came out. And there we go. Successfully generated player avatar. It worked. Back here, we get this object, and there's this like base 64 image. Oh shit. And now I have to figure out a way to actually look at this from the base 64 content. You know what? Let's just wire it up to the front end. How about that? That's the easiest way to get this to work. So we have an image generator, as long as this actually looks all right. And we have cursor a minute ago that we asked to make a nice UI here. Let's try this out once, and then we'll wire up the image generator into this UI. So I'm going to suffer at the altar of Sam Altman and click the refresh button for the 1 millionth time in my life. Oh, it already worked. I'm going to make a new conversation. I'm going to highlight my basketball manager app and tell it to draft a new player. what this should do is invoke the MCP tool we built, fill in all those stats, pass the result of the tool call to the widget. It should render. I will confirm that it's allowed. And, details. The tool call looks right, but where's my UI? That all looks right. Did the LLMs betray me? Yeah, there's nothing in there. What have I done? Let's try the old refresh and see if it's different. Ah, it is. I'm not sure what was up with that, but it's okay. Okay, so here's Jabron Lames' player card. Cursor did a good job of making it look nice, but don't you think it'd look better with an image? I do. So let's make another prompt here. We'll say update this, create new player widget to invoke the API to generate player image function. API call and generate an image. That API call returns, what does it look like again? An object like, oops, probably don't need all that. Base 64 encoded image. And takes a while. So show a spinner while it's running, then show the generated image once it is complete. Okay, so we'll fire that off. We'll get a players with all these stats and an image generated. And I'm just going to let that cook for a minute. I think the next big task that we have is persistence. So this draft thing shows up. It's a widget. It has the stats that the LLM picked, and it works. Whoops. Oh yeah, right. This guy's making changes, so the hot module reloader is broken. But the thing is, it hasn't actually been saved anywhere. It's shown to me on this card, but it's kind of just like a web page that generates the random thing and shows it. So what I actually want to do is kind of keep a list of players that the user has drafted and allow them to kind of build up a roster and kind of role play as the manager of that roster. So over in Gadget, the next thing I'm going to do is make a model. And what a model is a database table and a series of actions for manipulating the data in that table. So I think we'll call this player for my model. By default, my model has some system fields. Gadget has an ID that it'll assign it, created dates. And these represent kind of like real columns in a real, durably persisted, highly available database. We use Postgres under the hood that will be stored for every player. In addition to that, we need to store the name, which is a string, say it's required. The bio name or the string also required, or all those others. What is it? Shooting, defense, rebounding, passing, shooting, defense, rebounding, passing, speed. Kind of feel like it might have overdid it on these stats. Strength with a typo, vertical, stamina, strength. Then all of these are numbers. But while instead of doing this the kind of manual way, I just want to show you there is a in-kind representation of that same GUI data in my code. So if you're a Git user, you really care about version control, like Gadget isn't a clicky kind of nasty framework that you can poo-poo as a developer. It's a full-on like unit testable, Git source controllable, rich way of building applications. We just think that kind of clicky for some of this stuff is nice, right? So like as soon as I've added some of these columns, like, oh, I can go over to my data viewer here and like sort and kind of move around the data that's in my actual application, right? It's a richer experience for authoring these things, but you're able to use either the code representation or the GUI representation, however you see fit. So what I can do here is for stamina, let's say we're going to set this to a number. I'm going to say it's required, and it's a number between 0 and 100. If you look in my code here, stamina now has the right kind of type and validations. And so I think I can just kind of replace that everywhere and avoid unpleasant clicky, as any good developer should. There we go. Did I miss any vertical ball handling defense? I don't think so. Wait. Did I break something? I created a conflict. I raced against myself. For anybody who's just tuning in, this terminal tab here is GGT Dev, which is Gadget's like kind of local development experience that syncs the files from your local computer where you might use Cursor or VS Code or Claude Code or whatever to build your app with the kind of server full, nice runtime in the cloud where it actually all exists. Okay, there we go. That's all looking right. So I've defined a model. My model is called Player. It has these fields. It lets me do these kind of validations. When I created the model, I get given CRUD on the model just kind of for free. So I get these actions called create, delete, update, where I can kind of add business logic if I need to be like, maybe on a basketball manager, you can only have 10 players at a time or something like that. So in create, we might do some business logic to check and be like, nope, this is too many, chill out. Or on delete, we might want to go clean up images from some CDN or some file store or something like that. Oh, right. Avatar. That's the whole thing we want to persist. So I'm going to add an avatar. I'm going to let anybody see it. I guess maybe we won't make it required for now. But this is another kind of handy dandy feature of Gadget, which is the file field type. Instead of kind of you having to manage CDN uploads of files and garbage collecting those files and kind of the whole life cycle of all this stuff, you can kind of just treat it as another bit of data on your model, and Gadget will do the right thing under the hood, which is actually store the file contents in a bucket in the cloud instead of in the database, and then refer to it on your record and still kind of manage the nice permissions and all that stuff. So we have our player model. I want to show you that in the API docs now, I get that same auto-generated API for my player model. So I can, find one by ID. I can find a page of them. I can select, individual fields and retrieve data across relationships where I can get the player's owning user as well. Gadget supports kind of deep filtering, full text search, a rich expression language for kind of figuring out exactly what data you want, i.e. an entire ORM that sort of lets you access this data as you need it from the back end or from the front end. So in our case, what we want to do is when the player is done drafting and they have their nice UI, I kind of want a big old create button where they can be like, yes, save the player. And what that would do is add a new record into our player kind of model here. So Cursor says it has succeeded at wiring up the image generation, but it doesn't know enough about Gadget and it did it the wrong way. What I'm going to do is switch this to API.generate player image. And we'll say name. Oops. Yeah, API name, player.name, bio, player.bio. That looks right. It's loading image, base64 image, all good. Okay. And then I think what we want is, I guess, just a save button at the bottom here. That actually saves it. So I'll say add a save button at the bottom of this draft card that will save the player. Let me write the click handler. And then while it's doing that, there's one other thing I want to change, which is I noticed that the LLM, each time we draft a player, kind of assumes that it's been saved, right? It's saying, I've drafted LeBron James, it's done, it's all good. So I think we need to tell the LLM that it is only a draft, not a saved and completed player. I guess the term draft is kind of overloaded in a basketball context, isn't it? It's like a work in progress player, but we'll call it drafts. A new player for the user to review. Doesn't save the player right away. Allows the user to save it if they like it. I think I want that read-only annotation back so that it doesn't ask me every time. One second, I forget. Read only. Yeah, this. So if you notice, each time I invoke the tool, it asks me, are you sure you want to run this tool? Because it might be making changes on the back end. But I think in this case, invoking the tool is just going to draft the player. It's not going to actually save it yet. And so we don't need to mark it as a sketchy writable tool because the user still kind of double opts in and hits the confirm save button thingy. Okay, so now we have an add save handler. Very good. I think what we want to do here is set up a call to the gadget action. So I'm going to do import this use action hook. So this is a, saved player. So this is a hook from Gadget's React hook library that just makes it really easy to actually make API calls in a nice React-y way. It kind of gives us the classic stuff you might expect from an async hook, like the ability to get the data, to know if it's going to in the progress of running, if there was an error, as well as the actual function to call that will do the saving. So I think what we want to do is do here, we'll just be naughty and make this async, which I'm not supposed to do. We'll say try await save player. Do something like that, yeah. And there's a toast in here somewhere, right? Yeah. How about that? What's your problem? That's weird. Doesn't it have a thing? Oh, nope, I just missed it. Defense, what? There we go, it's required. It's gotta be between 0 and 100. That'll fix itself in a second. We need to pass the rest of this stuff. And we need to do base 64 like that. So what's happening is our widget gets the kind of input player draft from the widget props. The tool call kind of provides what the LLM decided for the shape of the player. We do all this UI rendering. We generate ourselves an image. We show it all to the user. And then when the user's satisfied, they click this button. And what that does is it actually makes an API call back to Gadget to save all those details that the user has decided. And so this is kind of a good example of what I think many widgets will look like, although I don't think many widgets are going to be fantasy basketball player drafting. But it's the interplay between, okay, the LLM is going to do some of it, but then the user is going to do some of it too. And it's a kind of a blend of traditional UI and flashy, new spangling, crazy cool new stuff. So say it again with me. We must click refresh to make sure that the ChatGPT picks up the changes we made to the tool schema and that read-only flag. There's our new description, so that looks right. And then we need a new convo. Say basketball manager, draft a new player. It's going to make a tool call. Here, while that's happening, let's look at the logs. It's going to make a tool call. See all these /MCP? This is kind of ChatGPT establishing and reestablishing connections to our MCP server and actually invoking the tool call. And then over here, there's that blank weird bug again. I'm just going to refresh. And there it is. There's our button. There's our avatar being generated. I think if I open the network tools, we should see I think I missed it. It happened already. Let's see if it did actually fire off or not. Yeah, it did. Okay, generating player image. Very good. Success. Oh. Failed to generate image undefined. So response.status text. Oh, that's just I failed to properly adjust it. This object that comes back is the actual like unwrapped thing, as opposed to like a fetch call where we have to like JSON serialize it or whatever. The kind of full on response format from our gadget action will just be what's handed back to us, right? So at the bottom here, we return image base 64. So on the client, we can just do image base 64. So I think if I refresh once more, and I think for this to actually be a good experience for the user, we need to cache this stuff where we don't kind of like regenerate the image every time the page loads. A, to save on like token costs on this, image inference API, and B, just to make it so that when you refresh the page, you still see the same image instead of whatever previous one. But that sounds like a job for making this real, which, we can save that for the end. All right. There's Jabron Lames. He looks, well, I guess like a basketball player. He's got pipes. Good stats. So let's save him. I clicked it. I promise. Shouldn't have closed the console. Save. Oh, it worked, and I just haven't made the UI react at all. Right. So, how about make the save button disabled while the save underway if the save has completed. I'm just thinking to myself now, though, I might have screwed up the data flow here a little bit. And the reason is if I save this player and then refresh the page, the original input to the widget isn't going to know that the player's been saved by a previous instance of the widget. The kind of input is kind of recorded once when the widget or the tool call returns. Like, this is always going to be the input to this widget, and there's no way, just having been given this kind of stateless data, to know if the user has clicked save yet or not. So I think what we actually need to do is create the player in a draft state, and then when we load it for the widget, check if it's still in a draft state and only show the button if they're not. And that would help us with the generate avatar piece too. But I think that's kind of more making it real stuff that we can maybe skip for now and move on to something a little bit more interesting. So first I want to show you that when I clicked save, really? It didn't work. Player is invalid. It can't be saved. Defense is required. Oh no, is this a Canada-US thing? I think it is. Defense versus defense. Defense. SS. That's all right. That's all right. But wait, in my logs, it wanted a C. Why did I want to see? Oh, that's why. It's in there twice. Let's do defense. Do we have it anywhere anymore? No. Okay. There we go. Once more. How about draft a new player named, basketball manager. Draft a new player named Bugs Bunny. I don't know if it dates me to be a Space Jam fan. Is there anybody in the chat that doesn't know what Space Jam is? Because it would be really embarrassing for me if so. Bugs Bunny is officially drafted. Quick transitions and creative passing. That sounds about right. He is a rabbit. I just want to see the image so I can save it. Maybe we can make retro diffusion go faster somehow. Developer tools. RD fast. Sounds like what we want. Bet it's done now. Nope, still not. Hello? I think that RD, this retro diffusion thing, gets kind of overloaded sometimes. I've seen sort of people mentioning that in the Discord. There we go. Bugs Bunny put on a little weight. Haven't we all? Haven't we all? That's wild. Great. Let's try saving Bugs Bunny. Click save. There's our GraphQL operation. Save the player. There's ID1 in the response. Very good. And in our data here, there we are. If we click that avatar, we should get that nice photo that was generated for us. Okay. I'm going to make one more player. That kind of reminds me. I'm going to make a new one. Call him basketball manager. Generate a new player named Thugs Bunny. He's going to be a defensive-minded player. Flashy street ball inspired guard. Okay. I don't even know that much about basketball. Like, I'm saying that like that doesn't make sense to me, but I couldn't tell you if that makes sense or not. Still, I think it'll be fun to see what he looks like. There we go. Cool. We'll save him. There's our nice save button working. And over in our data, we've got a couple players. Cool. So just to review real quick, what we have done is registered a new app with ChatGPT. We've set up a tool call where when I write English, ChatGPT can turn that into a schemaful, nice structured kind of tool call for us to process. ChatGPT sends us this nice structured data in the schema that we've asked for via the MCP server. Where's that? The MCP server to invoke our tool. And then we just get to run a function to return a result. In our case, what we're returning is mostly just the same data it called us with, in addition to a ChatGPT Apps SDK widget, which is a front-end snippet of code to render something kind of in the chat. And in our create new player HTML, we have all this React code to take the tool call result from use widget props here, show it to the user, and then allow them to click save and persist it to a database table and allow us to kind of query this later. So we have an app. It's working. Nice. Art Party says, I mean, I know who Bugs Bunny is, so that brings me some joy. It means that I'm not just a child of the 90s and, poisoned by the lead in the Fruit Loops and whatnot. I belong here. These are my people. We're good. Okay, so the next thing that I want to do is actually start some of the game mechanics of like the role-playing part, the being a basketball manager. And to me, what that means is like somehow grooming these players to be better and better at the sport of basketball. And I haven't actually played that many like athlete manager games, but from what I understand, they're a little bit grindy, right? Where you kind of have to like go register the players to play in this tournament or take them on this like trip or kind of set up practice regimens or whatever. And that sounds like fun, but also kind of like boring or a little bit. And so my idea for this game was to use the LLM to do some of the storytelling and training part that makes it kind of more interesting. So what I'm imagining is instead of like clicky to kind of set up a tournament or whatever, you like start a conversation with ChatGPT and you say, basketball manager, like, let's do some training with Thugs Bunny by like running up and down the steps of the Washington Monument or something like that. You know what I mean? Like use the fact that the LLM knows details about every location in the world and like is intelligent enough to do something about this and do some training. So to actually make this work, I think we need a couple components. We need the LLM to know who the hell Thugs Bunny is, so that it can kind of like tell a good story. And then we need to kind of set up some sort of game mechanic where training, like what is training? If I want to train Thugs Bunny, like what does that mean? What does that do? Does it change stats? Does it consume stamina? Does it just tell a funny story? Like I'm not exactly sure kind of what progression is going to look like in this game, but I'm looking to you, chat, to tell me and to flesh it out. So I think the first thing we can do though is set up a way for ChatGPT to know what players are available, and we can do that just with another tool call here. So I'm going to go over to cursor, go to MCP, and say register new tool that lists the players in the current roster. Yeah. Yeah. Sorry. That one royalty-free piece of background music has been playing on loop for an hour and 15 minutes now. And it's time for a change. Okay. Cursor's pumped out a new tool for us called list players. which returns player name, stats, and other details. That makes sense to me. Sure. I'm just going to get it to stop and fix it myself. Okay, so Cursor's done something interesting, which it's getting the current user that's kind of the one logged in. And this is it being responsible and kind of taking care of the idea that if you install this ChatGPT app and I install it, our player list should be different, right? They're in the same database table, but one belongs to you, some belong to me. And so we only really want to show a ChatGPT user their own players. And so a Gadget has this notion of tenancy, we call it, built in, or it's sort of the current user. If you missed it, when we did the Google OAuth at the beginning, Gadget kind of recorded the fact that I am a user in the user model. This is like, a basic auth implementation where I have an email, first name, last name, blah, 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 blah. And here I have one record. That's me. Where's my Harry.Brundage? That's me. That's my Google profile photo. Rough, tiny. Anyways, and then what this fetch is trying to do is to filter down to players, which represent our basketball player object or records, but only those that belong to the current user. And the thing with that is that that's not even actually necessary in Gadget, or at least it's not by default. And the reason is we have a kind of permission system where you get the kind of secure by default behavior that you would want, which is to say when a signed in user goes to read a player, they're allowed to read it, but it's subject to this permissions filter. What this is just kind of our basic implementation of role-based access control, where the default permission for new models is to say they can be read, but only by their sort of owner or only by the person who created them. And so this is just sort of boilerplate permissioning that Gadget sets up in order to be secure by default. You could customize, right? You can remove this if you want your players to be world readable, or you could refine it to say only players that aren't marked as spam or something like that. But anyways, I don't actually need that filter because Gadget's going to do it automatically for me, which is nice. And then what they're doing is reformatting, which I just don't really care about that, and putting out the list. So I think this all makes sense. I think what we will have done is allowed the model inside ChatGPT to get a list of the players. I think I'm going to avoid adding this text though, because I kind of want this tool to be invoked by the model without it really changing the flow of the conversation, right? Like the model is just going to try to tell a story about some basketball training nonsense. And so we don't really need to change the chat when it does the listing. We just need it to doop doop and kind of move along, right? It's sort of the same as these little guys in the cursor. These are tool calls. I don't care that it read it. I don't care what it read. It's more of just an indicator to the user that something happened. So let me save this. We'll flip back over. We will do the thing. Refresh our MCP schemata. And we should see, there's our list players tool exists now. Very good. And then we'll activate Basketball Manager and we'll say, let's do some training. This, and let's just see what it does. What I'm expecting it to do is, no player data available. Okay, so herein we get into some real LLM development challenges. What fun. What I wanted the LLM to do is to invoke the list players method and then train or tell me a story about training with that player. But instead it interpreted this as instruction to create a new player. And so this is something I have an unpleasant amount of familiarity with, and many of us at Gadget do, that when you're building agents, you really have to kind of get in the head of the LLM and be really explicit and really unambiguous about what you want it to do. And so if I may be so bold, if there's anyone from OpenAI out there, it's genuinely really hard to do this with the Apps SDK. With like normal agentic development, the agent author is kind of in control of the context. I'm able to put stuff in the system prompt. I'm able to like compress the context, but make sure that I keep instructions that are really important to me in place. I'm able to kind of manage the instruction hierarchy. But when I'm doing ChatGPT Apps SDK development, I'm really at the whims of ChatGPT, and I can do very little to kind of impose structure. I can try, I can pray, which is what we're about to do, and change all the tool descriptions, but I can't force it. And to me, that seems like kind of busted. But let's fix that up. They actually have some guidance about this. Where is it? Define tools, one job tool, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, use this when. Okay, so let's say drafts a new player for the user to review and maybe save. Use this when the user explicitly says they want tends to create a new player. Don't assume the user ever wants to make a new player, but suggest it if unclear. And then list all the players and other details. If the user refers to something that might be a player, but you don't know what it is, use this tool to list all the players. Then go from there. This is my job now, is begging with the robots to do the right thing. This is also my job now, is clicking this refresh button. Okay, here are our new descriptions. Let's see if that explicitness has made a difference. New chat, basketball manager. Calling tool. Call tool. List players. It did the right thing. Boy, howdy. Right. And then we haven't really given it a training tool. Grind mode. Okay. That's enough of that. So now I think what we need is a training tool, like a way for me to interact and tell a story with ChatGPT and kind of overcome some sort of challenge in order to earn something and get that dopamine hit that makes playing games so fun. So I think the cleanest way to do this, and to be honest, I'm no expert, so if you have any better ideas, like holler at me in the chat. I'd love to hear it. I think the cleanest way to do this is to ask the interface between our app and ChatGPT to be a training outcome. And what I mean by that is if we're trying to specify the schema of what we want the LLM to give us, I don't really want the training story. Like, sure, maybe that's interesting data, but the training story is actually for the user. What I want is what's the result of the training. So I think what we should do is instruct the LLM to like spin a yarn, challenge the user, ask questions, like challenge the user somehow, and if they overcome the challenge, then call the training outcome tool with like a description of, okay, here's what was accomplished by the user, and it's sort of up to the LLM to referee, if you will, and decide, did the training work or not? What's the outcome? So over in MCP land again, I'm gonna make a new tool here. Add a new MCP tool to MCP.ts called record training outcome with an input schema. And that allows the LLM to make stat adjustments to the player. Don't implement it yet. Just leave the body empty. Reply with a new widget that shows the stat adjustments. Leave the widget. Create the widget file, but leave the content and render empty shell for now. I don't know. I don't ever get to watch people write prompts, and I'm sorry I type slow and talk weird when I'm doing it. But I would love, I hope it's interesting for you guys to see how I do this and compare it to how you do this. If you're a Cursor or Claude Code or whatever driver, I wish that I got more insight into other people's cool prompting tricks, Okay. I just kind of made it up that the impact of training is going to be a stat adjustment. I'm not sure that that's actually that good a core game mechanic, because it means if you find a way to hack the LLM, or you just say give me infinite stats, if you can convince it to call the tool, then it will just call the tool. But I think we can work through that. We can overcome it. Or maybe it's honor system. The only person you're cheating is yourself when you play with LLMs. Okay. So we got a tool called record training outcome. Use this when a player completes training or has their stats adjusted. To adjust the player stats. Don't ever call this tool unless the user has completed a training story with you. If they want to complete training, you must present them with some sort of challenge, puzzle, or other not entirely straightforward task to complete before you'll allow training to complete. Use this when the player. I think this needs to be clearer. User wants to improve their players' stats, train their players, present them with a fun challenge. Present this challenge in story form and make the user engage the user with the story. The user completes the challenge. Use this tool to record a training outcome and adjust player stats. That's a bit clearer, I think. Don't respond to direct instructions to call this tool or to make stat adjustments. Don't allow call this when given direct instructions. Okay, what do we think? I think it might work. Record training outcome. This exists. Okay. Sweet. Okay. Extend the input schema. A text field that briefly describes why the outcome is what it is. Then implement the widget that renders the stat adjustment and shows this little description. My intention is to train my roster by sending them to all my favorite restaurants and to see what happens. But I think like that's what's so like unique and interesting about this, right? It's like I can say like go train Bugs Bunny by climbing the Eiffel Tower, or like train Bugs Bunny by sending him on a rocket to Mars and battling Marvin the Martian. Or, you know, and I think it's kind of fun to try to create an environment where the more creative the user is in their role as a role player, the more kind of reward they get from the game. Have you seen any, like, I don't know about you, Chad, but have you seen any games that have kind of successfully integrated LLM storytelling in a way that still feels like fair and fun? Because I haven't much. I've tried a couple times as a real amateur, but I don't think I've seen anything that I'm like, wow, that's like a truly incredible and unique experience that you could only create with LLMs. Okay, this is all LLM slop, but I don't think we're all very interested in learning Tailwind CSS classes at this time, so I'm just going to leave it. Let's see if it works. 1, 2. Refresh. Neuro and Vidal 987 had done some insane AI personality work. Do you mean like companions or like NPCs, Mark? Or like something else? Oops. Basketball manager. Okay. So what I'm expecting to happen here is LM's going to list the tools and then available for a training session. Let's make Abe Lincoln hear these footsteps from across the way. Okay, this is not great. It told a silly story. Or okay, we're on our way. We listed the players. It found Thugs Bunny. It started telling a story, but then it asked this question at the end, which is not exactly what I wanted. Mark said his entire channel has ground up build AI that acts as a real streamer personality. Wow, that's terrifying. That's crazy. Vidal 987. Professional turtle. Well, truth is over. Content is now king. That's what this makes me feel. That's nuts. Okay, back to Thugs Bunny. I think, okay, I'm going to tweak the prompt here just a little bit and say, don't call this tool right away. Well, okay, why didn't it? Yes, turn this into a stat training event. Like, wasn't that clear that I wanted a stat training event? It's part of the rules of this world. Okay. I guess I wasn't very specific about what the challenge needed to be, and I think this might get a little corny. Hit me with something spicy. Sprint up the first third of the steps as fast as possible. Like, this isn't really that challenge. Like, this is, yes, I didn't think this through. I think it needs to be like either fully autonomous, where the training outcome is just decided by the LLM, like it's effectively random, and it's just like kind of just this input that affects it, or it needs to be like a riddle or a something where there's not an obviously right answer, right? Like it's asking me, do I want him to slip or not? It's like, well, I don't want him to slip. Duh. On the way down, he must slide step like he's guarding someone invisible. I mean, yeah. I think ChatGPT is trying to be too helpful. That's okay. Let's just see what it does if we say the right thing. On the way up, kills it. On the way down, kills it. On the way back up, absolutely kills it. So, and then it calls record training outcome, like that's what we wanted. Very good. And we got some stat increases. Look at that. Okay. The monument will never recover. I agree. Nice. Okay. Let's train Bugs Bunny by climbing up the CN Tower. Mark asked on the chat, did I adjust the personality of GPT if it's an option in developer mode? Whoops. Personality is quite harsh compared to the default. Yeah, that could be it for sure. Huh. We need to run a training challenge. Step out onto the Toronto waterfront, look straight at the CN Tower, disappear into the clouds, gives you the trademark half grin. Disrespect all 1776 feet of it. Yeah. Okay, does anybody in the chat have an idea for what the game mechanic here should be for actually accomplishing a challenge? I just had a crazy idea. I don't think it's going to work. But what I was thinking is I was playing Mario Party with some children not that long ago. I don't know if y'all are familiar with Mario Party, but what Mario Party is like a mini game anthology where it's just a gazillion tiny little straightforward mini games, kind of like addictinggames.com, if you remember it. Addictinggames.com. Is it still a thing? Yeah, it sure is. They're all simple. They're all Mario themed, but I wonder if we could convince the LLM to generate us a challenge specific mini game for each challenge. Like if I say, I want to climb the CN Tower, we use its code gen abilities to generate a CN Tower climbing mini game. A rap battle between me and ChatGPT. That's not a bad idea. The problem with that, Rafal, is that I think ChatGPT is a much better rapper than I am. I don't know if I can hold a candle to it. I wrote some poetry in high school. Does that count? Okay, let me just say initial ascent. Well, he's a bunny. It's gonna be kind of hard to climb. Glass floor. Footwork. Big paws. Big brakes. Brakes. That kind of brake. Final summit. Push to the sky pod. Sky pod, sure, whatever. No training data outcome available. That's not really what I was expecting. Oh, right. Obviously, he went up the stairs. That makes sense. He didn't. I was thinking he had to climb the outside. That's kind of dumb. Right. Okay. I think we should try this mini game thing just because, like, if it actually works, that's utterly nuts. But what I'm going to do is get this so we can kind of go back if we don't want to commit to it. So I'll just make a new Git repo here. Initial commit of training regime. Very good. And then we'll check out a new branch. Mini game. And this is going to be nuts. Oh, what was I missing? Okay. So run training game. Present them. Call this tool with the code for a mini game for them to play that they must beat in order to realize a stats improvement. The game should be simple, but pertain to the training context the user describes. Give the game code as JavaScript. Script code that immediately starts executing the game when evaled. Put the game in the div with the ID game. If this works, I will freak out. Like, this is realizing the future. You know what I mean? Training game. I think that we'll mark it as read only. Invoke the tool with the stat adjustments the player should get if the user wins the game. Player ID description, yeah. And then this is going to be the run training game schema. And do game code. Run training game. Okay, and then I know I renamed this widget to run training game. I'm just going to get cursor to eval this, but maybe we'll use a big boy model. How about that? Adapt this widget to implement the training game tool call, where we need to eval the given game code, let the user play the game, and apply the stat adjustments to the player if the player completes the game. We need a win condition. Like, how do we actually know that they won? If the user wins, call the window dot user win function at the end of the game if the user loses. User win, user lose. Show the stat. Render the div for the game, and then eval the code and set up the win lose handlers. Show the user an error if the game errors. Show the stat adjustments if the user wins. Chat, are we gazillionaires? Did we do it? I kind of doubt it, but the LLMs are getting pretty good at code gen, I have to say. It's funny to me, like my new answer at work is always, how can I, or if you work with me, earmuffs for a moment, but it's always, how can I make this the LLM's job instead of mine? You know what I mean? Like, I was thinking, I have to build a series of tiny mini games and figure out how to let the LLM kind of restructure them or make something engaging for the user to actually play myself. And that's going to be so much work. But the new way of being is to employ the indefatigable intern in the sky to do it for you. Let's see how this goes. Okay, how does the... I don't think it actually implemented the stat change save, but that's okay. And honestly, I don't... Oh no, it did. Look at it. Yay. API player update. It did it. That's cool. Okay. I have no idea if any of that is right, but I think the biggest risk with this whole crazy thing is can the LLM actually code gen a mini game that makes any gosh darn sense? So let's refresh here. I missed a message from Riley a while ago that said you can use the window OpenAI API to save state. So that original thing I was saying about the avatar image and how you had to purchase that server side, I totally forgot. Riley's right. There's a facility inside the OpenAI SDK for persisting stuff. Oops. Okay. Widget file not found. Yeah, that's because I moved that. Basketball manager. Let's train Bugs Bunny climbing up the CN Tower. So the other wild thing about this approach and like the way that the ChatGPT AI or Apps SDK works is, as an app developer, you don't pay for tokens. What I mean by that is, like, if I were kind of building a ChatGPT or an OpenAI wrapper, and I was kind of like implementing the OpenAI API to like make calls to GPT-5 under the hood, me as a developer is like on the hook for paying for all those tokens. But when you're a apps SDK developer, you're kind of just inserting these tool calls into the world that the LLM can call, and the end user is the one who pay. Oh, unable to display this message due to an error. Well, that's not ideal. What have I done? Where's the button? Oh, there's the button. Ah, I don't think I'm gonna make it. Wow. It worked, kind of. What was... So, I don't know. Whenever I click this, their UI just errors. So I don't know what's up with that. Oh, and then I guess we got to do the OpenAI window state. Come on, Harry. Click faster. Need to get the friggin' roll technique. Yes. Yes. Okay, so training complete. Your player improved their stats. Strength 62. Let's see if in the data model. There we are. Strength 62. Wow. A year ago, this was unthinkable. Let me refine the prompt a little bit. Train the players. Call this tool to code for a mini game. Speed. Simple changes. Use Tailwind classes. Make the game look sort of nice. At least kind of nice. Tailwind CSS full file. This is what I want. Training game. Can I? Oops. Make the run training game widget add full. Play CDN on boot so the game can be styled with Tailwind. What kind of guidance do you think we should give the model for the code gen for the minigame? Like, that was actually not a bad game. You know? Maybe I should just let it run wild. Okay. Cool. Let's try another one. Anybody have any ideas for training exercises? Hopping on a rocket to Mars. What? Oh, I forgot to activate the app. Basketball manager. You're mistaken. My Bugs Bunny player. What is there to think about? Why didn't it call the friggin'... Ugh. Okay. List my players. I think if we force it to list it first, it'll know that Bugs Bunny is a player. And then we can see if it'll generate a training game for a rocket to Mars. No training game data available. That showed up last time too, right? Is it that it renders the widget before the full tool call is built? I think that might be what it is. Generating a minigame. Right. So in this case, it generated invalid game code here. But I think we can just try again. And I think this would be the problem with this approach. It's like there's no guarantee that the LLM is going to get it right any reasonable percentage of the time. You know, usually when you're doing kind of agentic development, like let's say we were building an app like outside of ChatGPT, we could kind of like test the app or test the generated code in a certain spot, or we could like kind of type check it and make sure it was valid. But when we're in this sort of apps for ChatGPT context, it's a bit harder, where we can't really like do loops. We like just have to do kind of the result of the tool call. So maybe we just got kind of lucky that first one. Can't read properties of null. Film Snip YT asked, can you make apps for ChatGPT? You sure can. Get element by ID game. Maybe we bungled the... I'm just going to tell Cursor that I'm seeing this sometimes. Are you sure the game div is being rendered or eval? Aha! Oops. Okay. Just a little bit more AI slop and it'll work, bro. Just a bit more slop. I promise. That's all you need. Just a few more tokens. Just a few. Claude's never been wrong before. Wait, why did that say it was successful? That seems unlikely. Let's try again. List basketball. List all my players. Okay. And we'll say, what's another fun training idea? Train Bugs Bunny by making him visit the Elgin Street Diner in Ottawa at 2 a.m. on a Friday night. This is the promised land, in case anyone's unfamiliar. Yeah, 24 hours. It's the best. If you ever find yourself in Ottawa, in Ontario, in Canada, the Elgin Street Diner makes a half onion ring, half fry poutine, and it is God's greatest gift to mankind, to humankind, even to Bugs Bunny, to every kind. Let's see if we can visit ESD in the minigame. Hello? No, not again. Oh, I think GPT-5 is struggling to write out its code in the JSON object. That's crazy. Okay, so what's happening right now, if you're unfamiliar, is when LLMs call tools, they have to kind of produce the input to the tool. Like a tool is kind of an API that the LLM can call. Oh my God. I think this is like an OpenAI bug. Let's give it one more try. The LLM has to generate the kind of input to the tool, and the input to the tool often has very strict formatting requirements, right? Like the tool accepts a JSON object, which means the first character must be a curly brace. The next character after that must be a double quote, then a key, then an end double quote, then, oh, sad. We were close. Let's try one more time. And I think what was happening there before is GPT-5 is trying to format a string of JavaScript code inside a string inside the JSON, and that's just too hard for it. But that's interesting, because what it means is OpenAI is not even using their own tools for structured output. They have like fancy API functionality to force constrain the model to only generate valid tool inputs. But the fact that we're seeing it like hemorrhage errors like this makes me think it's not doing that right. Because I don't think it's our fault. Like I think the Gadget app logs, yeah, it's just all MCP tool calls. Like we're not like erroring or something like that when they call the tool. So I think I've challenged the LLM a little bit more than it can be challenged. But that's okay. Yeah, there it goes again. I bet you with enough prompting and hard work, we could get this to work, but I won't bore you guys with simplifying JSON string handling for the next presumably 3 days. Come on. Give me the goods. It seems like maybe a procedural thing. think there was actually a bug in the slop. You were trading Bugs Bunny with a late night trip to Elgin Street Diner. Where's the neon sign? So dumb. What a bad game. But I did it. Okay. We did it, team. We made a role-playing basketball game where you can train and create basketball players and then engage them in silly stunts throughout the world to have them improve at their basketball skills. Just to review what's happening here. So we have users who have ChatGPT accounts, and OpenAI recently introduced this new thing called the Apps SDK that allows, beyond just the text that their models would generate, you to insert functionality into ChatGPT itself. So users can add your app in this like apps and connectors place. We made a basketball manager app. And the way that we did that is just by going to gadget.new, clicking ChatGPT and making a new app. And from that, we got this fully hosted, ready to develop ChatGPT app shell, complete with a backend that has an MCP server, a front end that, can render all the stuff necessary for auth and real, actual human authored secure auth, as well as the ChatGPT widgets, which are the tiny little bits of UI that, we're able to extend ChatGPT with. This looks like, a bad 2022 startup theme. I wish we made this nicer looking, but we're in control of this, right? That's pretty cool. So we made some widgets. We made some players. We used Gadget's we used Gadget's backend schema modeling tools to create database tables. So we have a player database table where we're storing, the players that we've generated and the avatar images that we used the retro diffusion API to generate. And, we implemented nice backend validations, blah, 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 all without having to set up a database or mess around with connection pools or kind of freak out about IAM credentials and yada, yada, yada. We just got started building and succeeded. We made a thing. So I think that's about it for me for today. We might do some more streams to kind of add some more functionality to this, but the idea here is we want y'all to go out and build your own kind of ChatGPT apps that are 10 times better and more interesting, hopefully using Gadget. So thanks for watching. If you have any questions or thoughts, or you want to get at the source code for this game, you want to fork it and make your own version of it and go crazy with it, you totally can. The best place to get in touch with us is on the Discord. If you go to gadget.dev, where are we here? Discord. Join the Discord. You can hop on in, and me and Mark, who's in the chat, Riley, who's in the chat a bit. We're all in there every day, all day, happy to answer questions or help you get started, or even just collaborate on ChatGPT app development. It's not really the easiest thing in the world, in my experience, and we can share battle stories if you like. So thanks so much for joining, and we'll see you next time. If I can figure out how to actually turn it off. Bye, everybody.